Okay, welcome. You're listening because you want to get smart on things fast,
Right.
but maybe don't have weeks to spare.
Exactly. And that's what we do here.
Today, we're doing a deep dive straight into the Kybalion.
Yes. Published back in 1908, credited to the three initiates, it's basically a study of Hermetic philosophy.
Right, from ancient Egypt, ancient Greece. It's dedicated to Hermes Trismegistus.
It is. Think of it as a concentrated look at some really old, influential ideas.
Exactly. So our mission today, pull out the absolute core insights from the Kybalion. These aren't just random ideas, they're supposedly foundational.
Yeah, they're said to underpin a lot of, esoteric and occult traditions that came later.
And the book itself claims something interesting, doesn't it? About being a key.
It does. It presents itself as a kind of master key. The idea is it helps reconcile different, sometimes conflicting occult teachings, shows a unity underneath.
Which makes sense because historically these Hermetic teachings weren't exactly shouted from the rooftops.
No. Definitely not. Often kept very quiet, passed on carefully from lip to ear, as the book puts it.
Very guarded.
So at the absolute heart of this are the 7 Hermetic principles. That's the bedrock.
The core structure. And those are what we're really going to unpack today. Let's listen quickly. Mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender.
That's the list. 7 principles to get our heads around.
So where do we start? Let's take the first one. The principle of mentalism.
Right. The core idea, it's actually quite simple to state, but huge implication. The all is mind. The universe is mental.
Okay, the all. Big term. What are we talking about when we say the all?
Think of it as the ultimate source, the underlying reality behind everything. It's described as a universal, infinite, living mind.
Sort of the substance of existence itself.
Exactly. It's maybe beyond our full comprehension, but it's the ground of being.
So if the all is mind, what does that mean for, well, everything else, the universe we experience?
According to this principle, the entire world we see, touch, interact with the phenomenal world is a mental creation.
A creation within the mind of the all.
Yes, existing within that universal mind. It has its own laws, sure, the laws of created things, but its fundamental nature is mental.
Wow. Okay, that's a big shift in perspective. Like the universe is a thought.
In a way, yes. And this, according to the Kybalion, helps explain things like mental and psychic phenomena.
Things that often seem, weird or outside normal science.
Exactly. Things that are hard to explain if you only think in terms of physical matter.
So for the listener, the implication here is, if the universe is mental, understanding its rules, the rules of this mental universe, that could be powerful.
That's the suggestion. Grasping these mental laws might allow you to apply them for your own well-being, your own development.
Instead of just being pushed around by circumstances.
Right. Becoming a more active participant, potentially. It reframes your agency. Think about times you felt powerless. Could this perspective change anything?
And it flips the script on things like energy and matter too, right? Makes them secondary.
It does. They're seen as subordinate to the power of mind. Mind is the fundamental reality.
As one of the old Hermetic teachers apparently said, understanding this is key to mastery.
Yes. Without grasping the mental nature of things, the deeper stuff remains locked away, essentially.
Okay, makes sense. Let's move to number 2, the principle of correspondence. The classic line here is, as above, so below. As below, so above.
Ah, yes. Very famous.
What's the core insight there?
It's about analogy, harmony, a consistent pattern between the laws and phenomena on all the different planes of being. Material, mental, spiritual.
So like the same rules apply everywhere, just expressed differently, like fractals.
That's a great modern analogy, yeah. It suggests a universal blueprint repeating at different scales.
And the practical use. How does knowing this help?
Well, it means you can learn about the unknown by studying the known, if the patterns correspond.
You can reason by analogy, like a universal Rosetta Stone, you said.
Exactly. The Kybalion uses the example of studying a monad, a basic unit, to understand something complex, like an archangel.
Because the fundamental principles are the same, just scaled way up.
That's the idea. The principles of existence, of consciousness, are present in both, just expressed at vastly different levels.
So looking at the small tells you about the big, and vice versa. A unity.
Precisely. For the ancient Hermetists, this was a huge tool for exploring the cosmos, for lifting the veil on mysteries.
Like studying water in a glass gives clues about the ocean.
A perfect illustration. Understanding one plane illuminates the others.
All right, principle number 3. Vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Sounds almost scientific now.
It does, doesn't it? But the Hermetic view goes deeper than just, say, molecular motion.
How so?
They propose that all differences between things dense matter, energy, mind, spirit, are purely down to different rates and modes of vibration.
So everything, even a rock, is vibrating, just really, really slowly or maybe densely.
That's the concept. And science, especially early 20th century science around the time the book was written, was certainly catching up with parts of this.
Right, like heat being molecular vibration, light being electromagnetic waves, different frequencies.
Exactly. Temperature, particle motion, light, heat, all understood as vibration.
Did the Hermetic view go beyond that physical level?
Oh, yes. The Kybalion talks about a universal ether, a much finer substance vibrating incredibly fast.
Sort of a medium for light and heat and stuff.
Yeah.
A philosophical idea that.
Yes, and an attempt to explain how these energies travel, something science was grappling with too.
They used that real analogy, which I thought was interesting. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. Imagine a wheel spinning.
Yeah.
Slowly, it's just a wheel. Speed it up, you start to hear a low sound.
Okay.
Faster still, the pitch rises, maybe through the musical scale. Eventually, it gets too high to hear.
Right, ultrasonic.
Then, keep pushing the speed, the vibration rate. You might start to feel heat, then see a dull red glow.
Ah, like heating metal.
Exactly. Then orange, yellow, through the spectrum, to violet as the vibration climbs. Then even visible light vanishes.
But other things might appear, like invisible rays.
Perhaps X-rays, other forms of radiation. And the Hermetists didn't stop there.
What comes next in their theory?
They speculated that if you could keep increasing the vibration, the object itself would break down. First into atoms, then finer particles.
Dissolving into that ether, maybe?
Potentially. And then even further up the scale, you enter the realm of mental states.
Thoughts, emotions, they have vibrations too.
That's the Hermetic teaching. Thoughts, feelings, moods all possess their own vibrational frequencies. And higher still, you approach spiritual states.
Ultimately reaching.
The all, which they saw as absolute spirit vibrating infinitely fast or maybe beyond vibration as we conceive it.
So it's one vast spectrum, from rock to thought to spirit, all vibration.
That's the framework. And crucially, they believed you could learn to control your own mental vibrations.
Change your state by changing your vibration, maybe even affect others.
That's the implication. Consciously raising or lowering your mental frequency.
Okay, fascinating. Let's hit number 4, polarity. This one's got a long axiom. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree, and so on. It reconciles paradoxes.
It's a mouthful, but the core idea is actually quite elegant.
Which is?
That things we think of as total opposites, they aren't really separate things, they're just two ends of the same stick.
Differing only in degree, like the axiom says.
Exactly. It's not black or white as a grayscale slider.
Like hot and cold. We feel them as opposites, but they're just more or less heat energy.
Perfect example. The Kybalion lists loads. Light, darkness, large, small, love, hate, good, bad.
So there's no sharp dividing line. Where does warm become hot? Or dim become dark?
Precisely. It's always relative, a matter of degree along a single continuum.
And the practical payoff here, this seems really relevant for emotions, right? Mental states.
Absolutely. This leads directly into what they called mental alchemy.
Alchemy, like turning lead into gold.
Metaphorically, yes, but for the mind. Because opposites are on the same scale.
You can slide along the scale, change one into the other.
That's the potential. You can transmute, say, hate towards love or fear towards courage by consciously shifting your mental vibration along that spectrum.
Through deliberate mental effort.
Yes, they called it the art of polarization, learning to consciously raise or lower your vibration on a specific mental scale to reach the pole you desire.
So mastering this is key to emotional self-control.
A fundamental part of it, yes. Instead of being tossed around by opposing feelings, you learn to choose your position on the scale. You gain mastery. Consider how often we feel stuck at one extreme. This suggests we have more influence than we realize.
Okay, principle number 5, rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. It talks about a pendulum swing.
Yes, this principle emphasizes cycles. The universe breathes, essentially. Ebb and flow in everything.
Like waves on a beach, but universal.
Exactly. A measured movement back and forth. You see it everywhere. Creation, destruction of stars, rise, fall of nations, life, death.
And crucially, our own mental states, moods.
Absolutely. That up and down feeling, the emotional roller coaster, that's the principle of rhythm manifesting internally. Highs followed by lows, elation by sadness.
It feels inevitable sometimes.
Well, the rhythm itself might be inevitable, but the Hermetic insight is how to deal with it. They talk about the law of neutralization.
Neutralization. Sounds like stopping the swing.
Not quite stopping it on its own plane, but rising above it. By raising your consciousness, your awareness.
You get less affected by the swing on the lower levels, like lifting yourself above the pendulum's path.
That's a good way to put it. You achieve a degree of immunity to the pull of the backward swing.
So through self-awareness, mental discipline, you can avoid getting dragged down by every mood swing.
Precisely. People with self-mastery, whether they know this principle consciously or just figured it out intuitively, they learn to maintain a kind of inner balance.
They don't get completely swept away by the extremes.
Right. The Hermetic master uses their will to stay poised, mentally resilient. It can look remarkable to someone constantly reacting to the ups and downs. Think of those really even-keeled people. Maybe they're applying this.
Interesting. Okay, number 6. Cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. No such thing as chance, basically.
Essentially, yes. Everything happens according to law. What we call chance is just a name for a law or a cause we don't recognize or understand yet.
So nothing is truly random, even if it seems like it.
From the Hermetic viewpoint, no. There are different levels or planes of causation, higher influencing lower, but nothing escapes law.
So pure luck, good or bad, that's just unseen causes.
That's the idea, a random lottery win. Still causes buying the ticket, the mechanics of the draw, a sudden storm, meteorological causes, geographical factors, maybe complex chains of cause, but causes nonetheless.
Okay, but if everything is cause and effect, what about free will? Are we just puppets?
Ah, the big question. The teachings acknowledge we're all subject to cause and effect, influenced by heredity, environment, all that.
But
But masters can learn to rise above the ordinary plane of effects. They can operate on a higher plane of causation.
by understanding these laws.
By understanding and applying mental laws consciously, they become causers, not just effects. They learn to shape events rather than just reacting.
So instead of being slaves to circumstance, we can become players, masters of our own game.
That's the potential. Most people, the Kybalion suggests, are carried along reacting. Masters learn to govern their own minds, their moods, their actions.
And by doing that, they influence their reality.
They become influencers, yes. They use the law instead of being used by it. Think about tackling a problem proactively versus just complaining about it. That's moving from effect to cause.
Makes sense. Okay, last one. Principle number 7, gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Important clarification needed here, right? This isn't biological sex.
Absolutely crucial distinction. Hermetic gender isn't about physical bodies. It's about universal principles of creation, generation, production.
Happening on all planes. Physical, mental, spiritual.
Yes. Biological sex is just one manifestation of this broader gender principle down on the physical plane.
So what are these masculine and feminine principles, universally speaking?
Generally, the masculine principle is associated with giving out, directing energy, projecting will, the active force. Think of it as the spark, the initiator.
Okay. And the feminine?
The feminine principle is receptive, generative, nurturing. It takes the spark and develops it, brings things into being. It's about forming, containing.
And both are needed.
In everything.
Essential. Everything contains both principles for creation to occur. It's about the interplay. Not one being better, just different functions, like positive and negative poles in electricity.
The Kybalion connects this to the mind, too, doesn't it? Conscious and subconscious.
It does. Often the masculine principle is linked to the conscious, objective, voluntary mind, the I that decides and acts.
And the feminine.
Linked to the subconscious, subjective, involuntary mind.
Hmm.
The me, the realm of feeling, intuition, memory storage, the part that gestates ideas. So how do they work together in our heads?
Well, the idea is the feminine me receives impressions, feels, generates raw ideas or concepts from the subconscious depths.
And then the masculine I.
Provides the focused will, the direction, the energy to actually do something with those ideas, to bring them into outward expression or action.
And if there's an imbalance,
Ugh.
like, say, a weak masculine aspect.
Then someone might be easily swayed by others' thoughts or just drift along without clear direction, ruled by subconscious impulses or external suggestions without filtering them through their own will.
It's about finding that balance, a dynamic interplay within ourselves.
Exactly. A harmonious working relationship between the I and the me.
And this mental gender idea They use it to explain things like telepathy, too.
Yes, that's part of the framework. Things like suggestion, hypnotism, telepathy could be seen as the masculine principle, the projected will, the focused thought vibration,
Any doubt.
and being received by the receptive feminine principle in another person's mind, influencing their mental state.
Like a mental transmission and reception.
That's the model they present, based on this idea of mental gender dynamics.
Wow, okay, that's a lot to take in. But it feels like we've really covered the core, the 7 principles from the Kybalion.
We have. And the key thing really is seeing how they connect. They aren't just 7 separate rules.
They weave together.
Yeah, absolutely. They form a coherent system, a lens for viewing reality, the mind, everything. Polarity and rhythm affect your mental vibrations. Cause and effect governs how things unfold. Correspondence links the planes. It's all interconnected.
It definitely offers a different way to think about things. Managing emotions, using polarity and rhythm, understanding influence through gender.
There are real potential applications here. Mental transmutation, changing your thoughts and feelings,
Yeah.
navigating life cycles, understanding how cause leads to effect.
It's about moving towards conscious awareness and maybe some level of mastery.
That's the promise held out by these teachings, yes. Moving from being passively affected to actively participating.
So, a final thought for everyone listening, something to chew on. Given everything we've discussed, these ancient ideas about mind, vibration, polarity, all of it, how might these principles offer you, personally, a new angle on challenges you face today?
Yeah, whether that's understanding your own consciousness better, thinking about reality differently, or just seeking more, personal empowerment.
Exactly. And maybe reflect on which of these 7 principles really jumped out at you. Which one resonates the most right now?
That could be a really good starting point for digging even deeper into this fascinating philosophy.